With the VIS price plummeting towards 1 cent, one question springs to mind, and that is whether PGX or Pegaxy is dead or is it dying? Now that is a question that we will try to answer today. So starting off, Pegaxy has not actually been around for that long. It's only been around 4 months, which in crypto terms can sound like a lot, but in gaming it definitely is not. So Pegaxy started on December, or the VIS token has launched around December time, maybe November, and it was about 10 to 15 cents, and then it went down to 3 cents. Now after that it started picking up a lot. It was getting a lot of new members in the Discord, a lot of people were talking about it on Twitter, and it went as high as 25 cents, meaning that the floor for a Pega was about $3,000 for a Virgin and $2,000 for a normal one, and then everything went crashing down on the 12th of February. So do we actually know what happened on the 12th of February and why it went wrong? And we do know what happened on that day. It was a Valentine event. VIS had a burn of 42.5 million, which at first glance is a lot. It was a voluntary burn. A lot of people have spent quite a lot of VIS purchasing Valentine tickets. So it was a major success. At the time, that was like $60 million burnt or something like that. But those people that purchased those tickets actually didn't use them that much. You can see right here, legendary tickets only 100 used, epic tickets only 244 used, and then rare tickets 500 of them were used. So not many people were actually excited for the event itself and what it can bring. They were only excited about the VIS price and whether that can be put even higher with the new burn coming. To their surprise and to my surprise, I was expecting the price to go up a little bit, and I was holding some VIS to sell and cash in, and that price started going down by quite a lot. And I think after people realized that this event wouldn't actually bring the price up, they just started immediately selling. There was a panic in the market. Is it gonna pick up? Is it not? And people just started selling and selling and selling, and the price never really went up after that event, which is weird if you ask me, because 40 million VIS being burned, that is quite a large number. Now, one more thing that is worth mentioning about the event, the Valentine event, is that it was released at the wrong time, in my opinion, because it was released on the 12th of February. A lot of people, a lot of guilds, a lot of major players that went into the game, they had their claiming period on that day. You can see right here, from December, every 2 weeks there was a major spike in the minted VIS, and that happens every 15 days, and you can see that the 12th and 13th of February was actually one of those days. So even though 45 million VIS was being burned, and if you see the other days it was only 20 to 30 million, that number went all the way up to 82 million VIS being burned. But a lot of people were waiting for that event, so the mint was actually even higher. So the event didn't actually have any impact. If anything, it has caused a lot of inflation when it comes to the minted VIS. And after that it kind of stabilized again, but the price didn't really pick up, and you can see again after 2 weeks another 100 million being minted. And if we see VIS being burned in the period of I have it set to all-time periods, it is still at 86%, which is quite major, but there is still hundreds of millions of VIS in circulation for the current player base. That might be a little bit too much, and that number has went down. It used to be above 90%, and another event happened on the 2nd of March. You can see right here, a lot of burn happened on the 2nd of March because people realized that the breeding cooldowns might actually change, and you can see right here now that mint is heavily outperforming the burn numbers. It used to be a little bit different. You can see in January the mint and burn being very close to each other, even burn outperforming mint on some days. Even in February, after the event, from the Valentine's event, that mint and burn number was still very equal. But after 2nd of March, it looks like everything has changed and people are not that keen to breed anymore. Therefore, they are burning less VIS and the price is dropping down by the day. And it also is interesting to see right here, born Pega. You can see that it peaked on 2nd of March, almost 11,000 Pegas being born, and then 3rd of March, 4th of March, it it is dropping down to 5,000 to 6,000 a day. So a major drop of about 40% drop off in new Pegas being born. And here are the key points that happened on the 2nd of March. So there was a flip of the racing cooldowns for all bloodlines because Haas was the best Pega to breed. It has the lowest cooldown and it has the lowest cooldown to start racing. They now have flipped it. So the racing cooldown for all bloodlines are now flipped, giving more cooldown days for Haas and less for Zan. That means Haas became less valuable, and because there was a lot of it, people started selling that as well, and the price kept dropping and dropping for the floor, right? Racing cooldown for adult Pega after breeding. So if you are breeding, now the adults have a cooldown on top of that as well. That used to not be a thing, so that had an impact on breeding because it simply increased the ROI. If you can't race, you can't win VIS, and if you can't win VIS, your ROI is going to get extended. So after entering a racing cooldown period after breeding, meaning you cannot immediately race your adult Pega, and I believe they added 4 days of breeding cooldown, so you can't race during that time. And the newborn Pegas are actually born with 0 energy, so that adds another day of waiting because they used to be born with 25 energy, or it adds another day to your ROI, right? So those were all the changes that happened that kind of punish breeding, which is a little bit weird because the only 2 ways that you can change the mint to burn ratio is if you increase your burn or if you lower your issuance, and it looks like they went for a unconventional decision to decrease their burn, which for me is not a best way to do it. I think they should have added the proposal that they had, which was to add more people into the race, therefore less VIS is getting won. I don't think this should have been the first proposal that gets pushed forward, but we'll have to see what kind of impact that has in the long term. Currently, it has had a very negative impact, as you have seen, for the burn ratio, as people are not that keen to breed anymore. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on was Corey has went out on YouTube again to talk about the stats of Pega as well as the plans, and it looks like in the next cycle that they have, because they work in 6 weeks development cycles, they will release some sort of a skill-based game, because currently that's not, you can't even call it a game, right? Pegaxy is not a game, but they want to do some sort of a game. It's definitely going to be a far away from the final product, but they want to have some sort of skill dependency as well as some sort of a stat dependency, which means that you can't just brainlessly breed any Pega. You will actually have to think about the stats, and that also means that the current Pegas might lose value, but they also might gain value depending on what kind of stats you have. So that's the next steps that they are taking towards making this game or this project better, and we will have to see whether that bumps up the price of VIS and it brings new life into the game. We'll see if people start coming up with creative strategies for breeding so that the stats are optimized for earning more VIS, as well as what kind of skill we are talking about right here, and that might lower the issuance or VIS, or it will keep going towards people that actually spend on breeding and therefore balance the mint and burn ratio, or people will be simply more inclined to breed the good ones and increase burn that way, bumping on the price of VIS a little bit more. So we'll have to see what this update brings. Whether Pegaxy is dead right now, it's hard to say. I think the price of VIS is not looking good, and breeding new life into the game will be necessary, as people after Axie Infinity, I think that they have realized that they need to take ROI quicker and they need to cash in some profits now, rather than keep compounding scholars for the project. Hence why after the first initial fallout of VIS, it couldn't really kick back up. So I'm still holding all of my 12 Pegas, one of them being a virgin Valentine. We'll see what comes out of that. Let me guys know if you are still in this project and how it has turned out for you, whether you have hit your ROI yet. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel for daily playthrough content, and I will see you in the next one.